every title you see there is are labels and divisive words and tactics of the shadow of humanity, the shadow that has been ignored, that has not been attended to, that has not been mended, that has been passed down generation to generation, generations to generations. So what do these concepts, labels, what do they all have in common, and where do they all mess up? They all battle against one another. Okay? And these battles happen because they first happen on the level of the individual, and that level then cascades to a level of a group, a culture, or a collective. And when there are differences and when there are challenges, as we meet challenges in our day-to-day life with relationships, etc., when these challenges arise, what many of those labels and many of those self-identified people, okay, do is they fight against one another. They bicker about who's right, who's wrong. Instead of taking the time to actually consider and step into the shoes of others and find ways to work together to live in harmony. You see, peace and love ain't easy, okay? Peace and love is not easy, especially with humans. It's not easy with humans. It's very easy with the animals if you actually understand with animals, and it's pretty darn easy to understand when it comes to learning from nature's plant medicines and the spirits of the plant medicines, okay? The energies of the plant medicines. But when it comes to humans, in any of these labels and any of these categories, they all mess up and they all got it wrong. Why? Because where they falter and where they fail is not realizing that they are all on the same goddamn plane under the goddamn fucking sun. You could call it you're in religious groups or religious beliefs, whatever the case, scientific. You could call it we're on a dish. You could call it flat earth. You could call it we're on a back of a turtle in some religious cultures. You can say it's a simulation. It does not matter. The simulation part is a little more excessive, I would say, because it depends on the context of simulation. Because you can technically say it's a spiritual simulation, but it's not a technological simulation. Because people like to say that. People like to say that the natural life and nature is a technological simulation in the sense of computer technology and all that other crap, you know. Nah, that's not the simulation, and that's not how I use the word simulation, and that's not how I refer to the term simulation. So if you want to call it a simulation, it is a manifestation, I would say, of the spirit. A simulation manifestation. A manifested simulation, spiritual manifested simulation, however you want to arrange it. It is a spiritual experience, okay? It is something born of the spirit. Life is born of the spirit. Life is born of love, okay? Now, some people will tell you, in any of these groups that you see on the thumbnail or the thumbnail of my video, in any of these groups, all right, you always have people who believe they are in the most right and that the other one is messing up or wrong somehow, okay? Now, again, like I said, in relationships, there is always the process of learning and working together and surpassing these challenges. Every generation has gotten it messed up. Every generation has messed up, okay? This thing about, for example, this concept of First Nations. If we know scientifically and spiritually and across all many cultures, spiritual cultures and cultures especially that have supposedly connected with nature's plants, if we know that time is an illusion, certain religions that talk about this, okay? If we know that time is an illusion, okay, then what really is the First Nations? Okay, the first people. If anything, I would say that the first inhabitants of this earth, okay, were the animals, were the elements, all right, was earth itself, okay? Then came humans, all right? And how old and how antique are humans? Much antique than we think. So then who really are the First Nations? Because according to what we understand about the First Nations, it was a mix of different people, especially a mix of different melanated people, okay? But it was still a mix of different people, different skin tones, First Nations. So to me, logically, anyone with a sound mind would look at today's world and the world they live in and be like, you know what, that kind of sounds like us. We are currently a bunch of different nations, and some of these First Nations even battled for the land because, like I've said, when it comes to loving and working with humans, humans make it far too complicated because we like to think only in terms of our survival. We don't like to think in terms of our thrival, okay? Because it's a pain in the ass to deal with humans, all right? Oh yes, it is a pain in the ass, and some of us know this from personal experiences and relationships. I went through something recently with a partner, and what a pain in my goddamn ass that was. Like, I had to prove my love. Like, I had to prove and really hold on and go through the emotions and the tears to really wait to my partner, or my first partner, I guess you could say. Don't know if it'll be the first or last, but either way, or maybe I'll just stop using that label in general. All right, I'll just stop using these labels in general. But anyways, that person, oh my God, what I experienced, holy crap. I'm like, damn. Humans make it difficult for love. They make it super difficult. They can't just be here in a moment and recognize that love is here at this moment. That pains, certain things that bother us can actually bring us together because we relate to the pain. So if we relate to the pain, what's with the competition of who's suffering the most? And I've seen that in relationships and families and friendships and other business relationships too. All right, or any kind of relationship. It could be explorer or expansions of your cultures. Either way, whatever the case may be, and whatever kind of people you or whoever people are, they make it very difficult. People make it very difficult when really it's super easy. It's hard, yes, because people have been programmed. Natives have been programmed. Natives, governments, religions, spiritualists even, STEM-related professionals, influential people, people who study psychology, etc., etc. So many of these people and so many of these kinds of people, any of these people who are so-called experts, historians, etc., yada, yada, so on and so forth, yada, 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 okay? Too many labels to name. The point of the matter is so many humans today that relate with certain groups or certain ideals or certain concepts are the problem, all right? Because they relate to a concept, and if not careful, that concept creates a division and it creates a wall. And when there are walls and when there are divisions, there are feelings involved. And when there are feelings involved that are not attended to, all right, on an individual and a caring, compassionate level, well, that's where you start having people who falter and give up and they become cold and do the stupid things that they've done throughout history. So both native governments and explorers, settlers, etc., people who are just trying to live their life, they all messed up in a way or shape or form. In many ways, shapes and forms. I'll give you one way they messed up. Number one way that they all messed up. Let's take the concept of killing animals for food. Animals are friends, kins, they are live beings with their own friends, their own families, all right? And these animals, quote unquote, these sentient beings, these inhabitants, these creatures of earth, just like us who are creatures of earth, all right? Whom our ancestral lineage goes way far back, everyone's ancestral. Point is, all these creatures of earth, they are all here to help sustain and maintain the earth, which itself is a living organism. Okay? Like you are an organism, okay? But you are so much more than that, and so is Earth. And anyone who truly has connected with that truth and who truly has understood and even shared the love, and they let the creatures share their love and how they see it in the way they know how. When you really look at that and when you really observe it and when you really receive it and when you receive it even from the plants, okay? Then you recognize just how much BS humans think of themselves and others and the world around them, okay? things that are so divisive, things that just ultimately go against love, freedom, and creativity, and sharing this world. This thing about whether natives own land or whether governments own land, none of those labels, not even those who are self-claimed indigenous, none own land. No one owns no land. And that's the problem, okay? When people start to try to own land, when people start to try to take over land, all right? When people start to quarrel between whose is what and what is not, or what is, all right? What is allowed, what is not allowed. People who quarrel, for example, about people who feel more a loving relationship with the animal companions and nature rather than humans. All right, there's a reason some people feel like that. There's a reason even I tend to feel like that, because humans really make it difficult when it really is so simple. No matter how many ups and downs we go through, there is always love if you just choose and make a choice. And everybody has a choice to make. Now, what else did I want to mention? Okay, as far as these labels, okay, and where else they all mess up. And historians, spiritualists, all right, you have so many spiritualists as well that they mess up because some spiritualists have a very self-righteous ego. All right, all of these concepts of who is indigenous, who is not, who is native, who is not, what's a government, what is not, you know, all these labels that are used to divide people and ultimately to try and like conquer or make an empire. All right, it's very stupid, and lots of empires are short-lived, and eventually empires tend to topple and turn over, or they evolve and they start to slowly die, like we see in other places that hold on to concepts and beliefs, other places around the world that hold on to concepts and beliefs that divide people, that essentially go against love. All right, I'm gonna just put it that way. They divide people, they create division, they create paranoia, okay? They create self-righteous concepts, they create self-entitlements, all right? They create self-doubts, all right? They create all kinds of things on both positive and negative aspects that basically essentially start to divide people. Hold on. So, what else do I want to mention? As I said, when you really think about who the First Nations are, essentially that is everyone here in this current space, in this earth, on this planet, on this organism. Okay? If you have someone who's white, skin tone, right, for example, right now, when I'm not in the sun, I become lighter. When I'm in the sun, I take on a brownish, gold, copperish color kind of thing. All right, when I'm definitely in the sun, I get that. That's my skin tone color. Okay. So, anyways, if I was white, sometimes, for example, and I have seen it in person, if my skin tone changes when I'm not in the sun, and I talk to someone who is self-claimed native, indigenous, or whatever the case may be, or self-claimed black, or self-claimed, ancient peoples, versus no them and not us. If I talk to someone and I say anything along the lines that I have noticed that makes them realize that I relate to indigenous, that I relate to native, because I know my ancestry line, I know where my bloodline and my DNA and who in my essence spiritually I am. So whenever I do that kind of stuff and I'm in my light skin tone, wow, the discrimination and the division and the separation that I see is incredible. No, you're not technically indigenous because blah 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 blah, because you don't really keep the culture. What is culture? This is where culturalists come in, right? And traditionalists. What is culture and what are traditions but let's use your mind, but a few, what are those things but a few practices and things that people agree upon and like? You don't have to agree upon the same things and like them, but you definitely don't have to stop you definitely don't have to stop one person and another person or anybody from enjoying their life and enjoying what they like to do, all right, and creating their own little, I guess you could say, I don't want to use the word cultures, but creating their own celebrations, exercises, activities, etc. Okay. Where do some of these other labels and governments, for example, and uh, explorers and expanders even get it wrong? Fighting against nature. I'm getting these notifications. Fighting against. Okay. Anyways, fighting against nature. Or trying to overcome nature, or trying to say be better than nature. I have seen, for example, in certain Asian cultures, not all, but certain Asian cultures, certain I guess you could say whitewashed Asian cultures, but I wouldn't even say that. It does not just them. I've seen it in all kinds of people. Certain people in different cultures who think themselves better than nature, that somehow nature's medicines, plants, and whatnot are lesser than, because the human is far more intelligent, blah blah blah. More self-egoic, self-identified, self-righteous jargon that I hear coming out of the mouths of illiterate, uneducated, and definitely unconnected, I would dare say at a certain level, people and individuals and collective groups. All right? Be it governments, be it social groups, etc. All right? So many of these groups and labels get it so twisted because they're always trying to fight. Okay? They're always trying to take more than what is needed. Everything we need is with nature. There's more than enough for all. There's more than enough space. What is this ridiculous concept that we have, oh, native owned land, government owned land? What is this division? And yet then people suffer, people whose ancestors, all right, gave birth to the new generation that you see today, all right? And upcoming generations that are still connected to our main source, our essence and spirit, our essence in our history, our essence in our DNA, our experience as humans, okay? Or anything. This is how you get some people. This is why why you think people, for example, have past life memories that are reactivated, okay? So this exists, right? Past lives exist. So if past lives exist, obviously, every human on this planet, if it is indeed exhibiting quality of a human, which is to love and only love and to constantly love. And love is not controlling either. Love means you work together to find a way where everyone can win. And more importantly, where we preserve and take care of nature, our animals, each other, and ourselves, okay? Where we all have access to what we need and don't need to pay to live in an artificial world to get our basic necessities. So, when these past lives, people who have past lives, and it's all kinds of people who have past lives, people of different skin tones, etc., different cultures, different backgrounds, etc., different historic generations, etc., different ancestral lines, etc., etc. All these people have had, there's many people who have had previous lives. Now, of course, you have the concepts of new souls, and you have indigos, star seeds. These are essentially people whom are very connected to their essence, their historical essence, because before anything is created, anyone who has truly entered that space of meditation and has truly entered that, what some would call the source, whether through meditation or through the help of plant medicines, okay? Anyone who has truly really entered in there will know that our source is spirit. Our source is spirit, the cosmos. There is this space of nothing, but in that space of nothing, everything exists, all right? And only those who have truly entered in there know what I'm talking about. And this is that space that many indigo, star seeds, etc. relate to, all right? Because they know that essentially, as some would say it, we are made of the cosmos, all right? But we are also made of the earth. The earth and everything in existence is made of the cosmos. The cosmos is consciousness. People talk about a higher self and a lower self. I was listening to something from Alan Watts that was talking about that the concept of a higher self and a lower self already creates division, because then you start to compete and you neglect yourself for who you are and what you become. That in that way it becomes toxic. Now, if you're talking about a higher self in the sense, me personally, what I would say is that if you're talking about a higher self in the sense of how much better you can get as a person versus what you experience and how you've handled certain experiences and how you can better handle experiences, hey, that's just part of being the self, all right? You are already the highest self. All right. There is a learning curve. Yes, there is a learning process, but that learning process is already part of the higher self. So long as you do your due diligence to constantly work and improve yourself, connect with nature, connect with the plant medicines, connect with your true inner self, the self that has no form, the self that can be an animal, it could be a tree, it could be the cosmos, it could be a planet, it could be anything, literally the elements. Again, I bring this up because this also relates to why certain people feel more connected with animals and creatures, because an animal doesn't really think too much about what it is and what it is not. It just is. It is pure, unadulterated, loving consciousness that some people unfortunately think are sexual by nature, but they're not. They just know how to use that energy correctly. So when you see an animal trying to express its love to you and it's trying to bring in some of that sacred energy, listen, don't get in over your heads. Don't think that it's because it's sexually attracted to you. That's not what it is at all. You just need to observe them and you see how they treat that energy. They have a far greater respect for that energy than most humans. And I know this from experience because the humans I deal with, oh my God, some of these humans are just crazy about the sexual parts of the human body versus actually just recognizing that it is like a key, it is an activator, as I like to say. All right, and this gets into tantra, etc., etc. But anyways, my point of the matter is, in all of this stuff, is that our essence is all connected. We all come from the same essence. Everything that exists in life comes from the same essence. Okay, the essence is in everyone. That essence is life. That essence is love. That essence is what some call death. Because death is only a change, is a season. Just like in the winter, you see things fall. Look at mushrooms, for example. Mushrooms grow on things that are supposedly dead. So how can something grow on something that is dead? It's because that thing is never really dead. It just changed form. It went from a tree to dust to ash. From the ash, it became mushroom. Hello? That's real simple to understand. Okay, so obviously, death is not a wiping away of consciousness. All right? There is no such thing as wiping away of consciousness because the mere fact of thinking about wiping away of consciousness is already a usage of consciousness. So you may think of wiping away of consciousness like something that is completely black, there's nothing to see. That, you're already seeing something right there. All right? It is impossible for nothing to really exist because even when in that state of meditation, when you enter that point of nothing, that actual point of nothing has everything in it. It is a nothing because in the sense that it doesn't have to be everything in it. It could be anything of the things in it. It could be none of these things at all. That in itself is a space of pure energy, of pure consciousness. All right? So this blackout concept of death that people have, no, it's a false concept. Even when you are asleep and you don't dream and you wake up and you don't dream, there's a lot of people who have had near-death experiences, okay? Out-of-body experiences. Even that, not dreaming doesn't mean you're not conscious, okay? It just means you're not dreaming or you're not really paying attention to your dreams, or that side of you isn't really, that window of you, that keyhole isn't really looking there. That keyhole has been put to, you're letting it rest for a reason, and that's your own process. But anyways, all of these things that people experience, all these things that people go through, and all of these ups and downs that people go through, and all of these concepts and divisions, all right, these are great. They have a lot of great, good things, and that's why I say there are some good things. But where we mess up is when we start to divide amongst each other, and we start to say, no, you're this, you're that, or you're not this, or you're not that. No, we are this, we are that, or we are not this, and we are not that. Or we start to say, no, you can't have this because this is ours, or you can't have this because this is ours, or no, they did this and they did that. This pointing fingers thing, again, if we really talk about what the first people, First Nations are, when you really think about it, and when you really look at the stories that have been passed down from generation to generation and by spirit itself, all right, the spirit of life itself and the plant medicines and the knowledge of the plant medicines, when you really connect to that, and the animals too, when you really connect, you really realize that all of this shit that I would like, and that's the word I would like to use right now, all of this shit that people talk, okay, about whose fault is it and who yada yada, listen, it's everybody's fault. It is everyone's fault. I would say even my fault at times. All right? It is everyone's fault. When we start to create division, it is everyone's fault. But when we can look at our faults and look at our shadows and realize that these shadows are only parts of us that help us to grow and we can understand them, then we can actually find a balance where they both exist. All right? And where none takes over the other. You are in harmony with life and the ebb and flow of life. All right? So when we can look at this, when we can recognize this, then we can recognize that this land, that all the lands, the oceans, the skies, they are to be shared, okay? Because you don't own them. None of you own them. None of us own them, okay? No human, no self-identified culture, no nothing. No one, no living, human, talking being on this planet owns any part of this world. And it is stupid to think so. And any efforts to keep trying to do so will only end up in more karmic resolutions, more karmic consequences. You get what you give to others, including what you give to yourself and what you don't give to yourself. If you don't give yourself love, you don't get love. Give yourself love, you get love. All right? Give others something good, and you also receive something good. Others include the other creatures as well. Okay? And with that being said, I think that's all I have to say. All right? With that being said, love more, okay? Share more, and come up with ways of working together. And for those who keep thinking that the answers to our world problems is more technology and building more things, no, it isn't. It is living here now with harmony, with nature, with each other, and having a good ass time, different sports, things to do, etc. There's so many creative things we can do. Even with the technology that people create, there's so many fun, creative things we could do. Paintball and airsoft is a good example. Martial arts is a perfect example. Sparring competitions is a fun example, okay? Every part of the world has a bit of all of this stuff, so no one is more special than anyone else, okay? No one has more self-entitlement to anything or any part of this world, okay? Let's get all of that. Let's all get that straight in our heads. Nobody in this world under the sun owns Earth. Because the day Earth decides to say, oh, y'all think y'all own me? Y'all messed up. I ain't gonna feel bad for y'all. Why should I feel bad? I mean, maybe I will feel bad, but why should I feel bad? Why would any of us who are constantly talking about this feel bad? This is how sometimes some of us feel. And some can say it's very egotistical. You could say that. But at the same time, it's, you know, if it was only egotistical, I wouldn't be on this video now, would I? Okay? So, I hope this inspires y'all. Y'all learn something. Y'all get together, work together more. All right? Get rid of these boundaries, and you know, if others are too difficult and they are still not catching on, whatever groups or labels that these people may say they belong to, if they're not catching on to what love is, all right, if they ain't catching on to the love, all right, and the unity and the harmony, and they're making it difficult, hey, that's fine. Find a different way. Let life, sometimes just let life take care of them. Life will show them, and you just keep working on being the example. You have more power than you think. All right, especially when you work together. All right, namaste, peace. I am out.